Record it.
Madame Lorianne Duguay, how's it going today?
I'm good. How are you?
Good. Episode 4 of Business as Unusual. Again this week, we have another guest, our second guest. And this time we have somebody all the way from Thunder Bay. But people from Kapuskasing will definitely recognize that face, of course. It is Bryan Pye, BJ Pye for the intimate ones. It's actually, I just want to start off before I even introduce you or let yourself introduce yourself. And I met Bryan this summer at the golf course, and it was the first time meeting Bryan, and I met him through one of my good friends, Teddy, and it was very a telltale sign of what kind of guy he is when everybody I saw that met BJ while he was there immediately had a big smile on their face, stopped what they were doing to come and say hi and ask him how he was. And I mean, the entire day that he was there, that's the interactions that I saw. So I'm actually very excited to have you on our show today, on our episode today. And I know I'm going to get to know you even better. So Bryan, what is it that you do?
Wow, that's quite the intro there. So yeah, like you said, I'm born and raised in Kapuskasing. Left Cap when I was, I guess, about 17 or so. Went and played hockey for a little while. Went to school, and then I moved to Thunder Bay in about around 2000-ish. My family had moved here to buy a business, so that's when. Shortly after that, that's when I started pursuing my accounting designation, and got that. Took a while, but I got it around 2012, and so I've been in the accounting industry for better part of 15 years, and that time has been split evenly between working in industry, so a controller for different businesses, as well as public accounting. So currently I'm a manager at a public accounting firm in Thunder Bay. So the firm is Grant Thornton, and it's a large firm, international firm. We have several offices across Canada. Our region, my region, is Northern Ontario. So that covers Thunder Bay, North Bay, New Liskeard, Lake. We have an office in Timmins, who just came on board. So, and my focus is cloud accounting systems. So we can get into that a little bit more. But that was sort of the reason I came back to the firm. I was a controller at a law firm for about 5 years, and it was great. They're great people and everything like that. Just started to look ahead and wanting a bit of a change, and to kind of sharpen my skills a little bit. When you work for one company, it kind of you're doing one company's stuff, right? So so I was kind of looking at different things. I had always kept in touch with these guys because I had worked there early on when I was getting my designation. And they started talking about this new practice that they were rolling out, and if I'd be interested. And so I came back, and it's been about going on 2 years, and the practice is just like taken off. It's crazy how people are gravitating towards these cloud-based applications for even before COVID, and then with this crisis period, people who were kind of on the fence have been jumping in. So it's a really exciting time to be in that sort of a field. So
it's very cool that we're going to get to talk about this. And after our last episode, I just want to frame it here. Laura sent me a text like maybe an hour afterwards. We always start getting feedback right after we launch our episode, and after launching our episode, she texted me back saying, we got to do something on finance, we got to do something on the grants that are available as well. So, and I guess a day after, you texted me and you told me, you know what, I have some information here. I think that could be helpful to a lot of businesses. And if you're looking for experts, don't know what your lineup is, but if you're looking for expert, I'd be willing to come on board. So this was awesome. And I didn't even know, Laura, you knew Bryan. How did you know Bryan? Did you go to school together?
We didn't necessarily go to school, but we kind of ran with the same circle of friends. We are the same age, I believe. And so, yeah, I've known him just because I was at CT, he was at Katie. So
31, right? 31.
Yeah, for sure. 30. Thanks a lot. I was going to tell people, but okay, we'll go with it. But yeah, we've known each other pretty much. And I think our parents were actually friends even before that. So I think I've known him pretty much my entire life. But I honestly, in true fashion, we kind of lose touch over the years. I had no idea what he did for a living. So I was pretty excited that he reached out. And I guess I want to add the caveat, if there's any other experts out there who feel they've got something to share and would like to tap into the potential or the kind of the medium of this show, like, we're all ears. Feel free to reach out, comment, and we'll definitely bring you in.
Yeah, so it was awesome, right? To have him, like, the timing was perfect. Did you have a question for Bryan? First question?
The first question? No, I just want to kind of frame it a bit further again, that initially we talked about this COVID thing and providing different tools for employers. And definitely I'm hoping that you're able to kind of demystify and make that whole process of applying for these different grants a little less scary for employers, and maybe they'll be more apt to go ahead with it. But I'm super curious about hearing about this cloud-based accounting, only because my own business has kind of organically grown over the past year and a half. And I've had to now start being a little more organized, diligent. The shoebox type accounting is probably not going to fly anymore. Actually, I know that it's no longer going to fly. And I've recently invested not knowing what it was about. And I just kind of did it. And I really know that I'm not using it to even a quarter of its potential. So I'm really excited. It's a bit self-serving perhaps, but I'm sure that if I'm in this boat, a lot of maybe smaller to medium enterprise are in a similar boat. So perhaps my first question is, what is cloud-based accounting?
Yes.
Yeah. Great question. I mean, you could take it any number of ways, I guess. At its core, the simplest is it's accounting software that resides in the cloud. So there's no software to install on your local machine. There's no hardware to maintain. You can access your data anywhere that has an internet connection. So I mean, at its simplest form, that's what I mean. It's no different than any other cloud application. It's just you're using it for accounting purposes. Now, as far as what our firm does is we build, we tailor systems to the client. So depending on the industry you're in, you might have a different application that sort of does the front end. So let's take like a doctor's office or a dentist office. I don't know if you know any, but if so there may be a front end application that you can handle your billing and your appointment tracking, and so that's all done in that. But the way these cloud applications work is that they talk to each other, so they're fully integrated. So any accounting information that in the past you'd have to run a report, give it to your accountant, they would data entry that into your accounting system. Now they're linked, so that accounting information,
it's all automated.
It's fed in, and then so that's what we do, is we kind of look at the client, look at their needs. Now we have a core stack of applications that regardless of the industry will sort of apply. So if you picture like a wheel, the hub of that wheel is the accounting software. It's the accounting piece. So we have two providers that we partner with. One is QuickBooks Online and one is Xero. In QuickBooks, yeah. So they're by far the industry leaders in Canada, US. So we've partnered with those, and then from there, if you picture spokes off of that wheel, you've got the different applications that feed into your hub. So There's what's called like a receipt processing app. We have a couple of them. One is called HubDoc, one's called Receipt Bank. So this is kind of the neatest part about it, and really kind of wows clients, is that it uses OCR technology. So I'm sure you're familiar with OCR, but it basically you scan your documents in. So you mentioned your shoebox, okay, the classic shoebox example. So you take those receipts and invoices and scan them to this HubDoc or Receipt Bank app. It reads the invoice and picks out,
which account to put it into.
Right. Well, I mean, you have to kind of program it a little bit at first to know which account, but what it does is it'll pick out the date, the vendor, the subtotal, the HST, like all the pertinent accounting data. And then it uses machine learning to, if you say, okay, this receipt from Canadian Tire is office supplies, the next time you get that same vendor, it'll know that that's office supplies. So from there, like I say, spoken wheel, right? Then that accounting information is fed directly to your accounting system. So I mean, and we can, like, it can go on forever as far as those spokes go in terms of, payroll and, inventory. Like, there's an app for everything depending on the industry you're in.
Well, when you said scheduling, sorry, you kind of got me like in awe of that one. That could actually, like, for scheduling, for example, a medical office, a dental office, there's actually an app on these spokes that could manage all of the scheduling, and they could use to schedule their patients, and then that would account and bill accordingly, all automatically.
Yeah. So again, depending on so if it's a sort of an obscure industry, like there may not be a specific app, but if you're a kind of a mainstream industry, I mean, they have. So if you're a gym or a yoga studio, there's an app that handles that front end. If you're a medical dental office, there's that. If you're a professional services, like a lawyer, we have an app for, well, not we, but there's an app for that. And so that, for me, that's the fun part is dealing with clients, researching, like figuring out their needs, what they're after. And then researching what's out there and then building that system for them.
Yeah, like really tailoring that solution, that accounting solution for their needs. That's amazing. One kind of question that comes in my brain that I know would come to a lot of employers' brains is from a security perspective, only because I know a lot of my in my government job, for those who I've interacted with, they were really reticent to start sharing anything, even on like USB, let alone upload all this data to the cloud. So what reassurance could you offer in terms of security for all these suites?
Yeah, so well, I can only speak for our firm. So we don't promote any apps that aren't vetted thoroughly by our own firm's security, IT security, cyber security, and everything. So essentially, it's wherever that data is stored. Put it this way: you have probably a better chance of getting compromised on a server in your office than you would on one of these vendors' data. So anything that's vetted by Grant Thornton is only the main cloud storage providers. AWS is one of them, Microsoft. So can those servers get compromised? Anything's possible, but the odds of that data getting compromised is quite a bit lower than we had just yesterday, we had an email come through, and it was from the picture in the screen was this little old lady and saying, a document is waiting for you, click on this. And, you would think that people would kind of eyebrows would raise, right? And sure enough, like half the office clicked on it. So, we had to shut everything down. And but so that, like, those types of examples, that you're more likely to get compromised that way than you would because your data is in the cloud. I get the reluctance, of course, but the truth of the matter is it's very secure.
That's super
reassuring. I think the value of these businesses, the automation part is one of the aspects, but they have to have maximum security. Like when you're talking about financial data, I mean, that's it's so private. Like these firms, they basically invest probably a lot more in cybersecurity than they do in the programming and automation. Now, of course, that's part of the thing, but I mean the value that they offer is the highest level of security probably that you can get. And to Bryan's point, I mean, you would not be able to get that type of security for your own firm, basically on your own server. So that's one of the values. And do you think this is the type of service that is mainly for bigger operations, or does it fit for any type of operation like Lorianne's? And
a good question. I mean, the beauty of and I mean, some firms are taking slightly different approaches. Like Grant Thornton's approach has been to partner with third-party providers. Some firms are building their own proprietary systems, which are a little bit more, they're more what's the word? Like you're more confined in terms
restricted. I would see that.
So I mean, to your point, like with our firm, we could have the sole proprietor record shop. We could have a 50 employee contractor outfit that so it's very, very scalable. This type of model is very scalable. So,
and one of the things the reason why I'm asking is that being in business, one of the big hardships that we hear about is all the paperwork, taking care of the financials, preparing the year end. Like a lot of small and medium sized businesses, SMEs, that's their biggest challenge, right? They can't afford to hire full-time administrators to take care of the finances, so they have to take on the responsibility of doing it themselves. And from what I hear, like I'm not knowledgeable in this type of accounting solutions, but it seems like the automation process kind of takes a lot of the hassle away from these business owners that have to take care of their own finances.
And to add on to that, and to plug our second episode where we talked about business process reengineering in terms of saving time and wastes of resources. How much time do you think people are wasting on trying to figure out this accounting piece? If they could automate so many of these functions?
Exactly. And I think there's two sort of pieces to that. I would say is that sure, there's the time, but there's also the ability to make business decisions. So
yes,
you guys are very business oriented. Like if you're looking at information that's 3-6 months old, it's pretty useless, right? So if you can not only keep your data organized, like keeping it organized, great, that's fine. But if it's organized in a way that's meaningful, that you can actually make some business decisions, that's the value in these systems. And like obviously having an accounting professional on your team that can sort of be in that data, so to speak, throughout the year, instead of keeping it in a shoebox all year and then dropping it off at your accountants for the year end. They file your tax return and tell you how you did for the year. I mean, that there is value in that, but for my money, there's more value in having someone with you along the way. And sure, you still need someone to do your tax return and your year-end statements, and that'll always be there. But to make those day-to-day, those monthly decisions, you want your data, you want your financial records up to date, and being able to do that yourself, and then maybe have someone kind of do a quick reconciliation once a month. That's the ideal situation, I think.
That's
so
beautiful.
It becomes, it almost becomes like the job you had before with your law firm as a controller, right? It's having your own little controller services, I would say, because not a lot of businesses actually have an opportunity to have a controller, and that's what a controller does, right?
Yep. Yeah. That's great points. That's great points, Seb. I would say that, in Thunder Bay, especially in some of the smaller markets, I mean, there are very few businesses, like you say, that is going to hire a full-time financial employee, right? Like, so a finance person. So but then again, those businesses don't want to pay, an accounting firm to do that same service. So a system like this allows you to sort of pick and choose, right? So you can outsource the things that you're not comfortable doing, if it's payroll or if it's, reconciling your bank account. But some of the things you might be able to do yourself, like, feeding that system, like keeping the invoices up to date and keeping those transactions in there. So yeah, we've had some real good success with clients in sort of structuring it in a way that, we're doing this more, I would say, riskier areas where, they're prone to error, those kinds of things. But we're keeping the cost down by training them to do a lot of the stuff themselves. So
two things on that then. Loving that this concept of you guys kind of supporting the building of capacity within their own ranks. So helping kind of coach them into doing those more straightforward tasks on an ongoing basis. And because at the end of the day, they also minimize their own, reliance on external third parties. But one of the things that I've noticed, just a simple concrete example, with the growth of my business, I suddenly had to start charging HST. That was like a daunting thing for me. I had no idea where to start. And then I realized that there was an extra tab in my QuickBooks that said, so every time I'd invoice, it would automatically calculate the HST I was collecting. So then all I do is taxes, and it tells me exactly the amount that I'm due to remit for that quarter, because the way I set it up, it tells me exactly. And I actually click a button that says remit now. I'm like, what? That's all it is? Pretty sure not all systems are that, integrated. I thought it was wonderful. So just as a perfect example. Spirit of time, though, I really would like us to start chatting about some of these grants, but without saying, if I'd love to keep talking about this, but if people do want to keep talking, you're going to share all your contact info with us, right?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Awesome. Any resource you can share, we'll make sure we share within this, with the episode links, so people can kind of tap into that stuff and at least reach out if they want to explore that a bit further. So federal measures and any provincial measures perhaps that you're aware that could support employers during this pandemic.
So first and foremost, Bryan, are you getting a lot of calls though, like for this? As like, I imagine all your clients must be asking you questions about this, and are you surprised by the number of calls you're getting or the lack of calls you're getting? Like, how's that been?
Well, it's been interesting. I mean, this has basically in the last 6 weeks or whatever, it's been turned into sort of a practice area, if you will. So, our firm has audit, tax, et cetera. We basically have a COVID-19 practice area. So, but without exaggeration. So we have a team that's dedicated to staying on top of all of this stuff. I'm not part of that team, but and because these things are changing, every day at 11 when Mr. Trudeau goes on the air, I mean, something could change. So it's we have a team that's staying on top of the changes and fielding, as you say, all the questions. So yeah, tons of questions. What we're also trying to do as a firm is be proactive and reach out to clients, which is kind of part of this is, because what we're kind of amazed by is how, because we're in it every day, it's just we know about these things, but we're often surprised at how many people aren't even aware of some of these things. So yeah, the more we can put that information out there, and and all firms are doing a good job of this. I mean, not just Grant Thornton. I'm really impressed with, the MNPs and the Baker Tillys and all these firms are doing a great job of getting that information out there to clients. So, yeah.
So what are the most popular grants that businesses are looking for? What type of grants that are available there that are most commonly asked from the business?
Well, I'm just going to focus on a few. There are a lot of things out there. I'll be upfront. I think the ones that are sort of most prevalent are around keeping your employees working. That seems to be a big focus of the federal government. So, there are two wage subsidy programs currently available. The one is a 10% wage subsidy, and the other is a 75%. So the 10% wage 75%, yeah, exactly. So the 10% is very broad. There are very few restrictions on that. Essentially, if you had a payroll account with Canada Revenue Agency at the beginning of March, you basically qualify. So there's no application form. There's no application to make for that 10% subsidy, but you do have to do the calculation, and it's administered by reducing the amount of source deductions. So, as an employer, you withhold source deductions from your employees and remit that to CRA. This subsidy, you calculate it and you basically reduce the amount that you would otherwise pay. So that's
your CPP, your EI, your MERCs, basically. They reduce it.
That's a great question, Lori. You don't reduce the CPP and EI. That stays the same. You reduce the amount of income tax that you would otherwise withhold. I mean, 6 of one, half a dozen the other, but the CPP and EI amounts will stay the same. So, so that's the 10%. The 75% is a little bit more involved. You have to, as a business, demonstrate that you've had a drop in revenue due to COVID. So it's a 15% drop year over year in March, and then 30% in April and May. And
that's changed, recently. Initially, it was 30%, I think, across the board, and then they adjusted March to 15,
Yeah, that's correct. There was a lot because really things didn't really, hit the fan, so to speak, till mid-March. So it didn't take long for them to say, okay, 15% in March and 30 the rest of the way. So yeah, if you can demonstrate that drop in revenue, then it's basically an application form that you fill out, and you get reimbursed essentially 75% of the employee's wages. There is a cap. It's up to $847 a week per employee, and the key thing here, and not to get too accounty on you, but you can use what's called an accrual method or a cash-based method for calculating your revenue. So where that comes into play is if you're a business that has, if you have a lot of accounts receivable and you haven't collected that money yet, your revenue ordinarily would have been X, right? Because you recognize that revenue when the sale is made. But if you haven't physically received that cash yet, the government is letting you recognize your revenue based on cash received.
Wow.
So it's something that not everyone's aware of, and if that's where it's very good to kind of consult with an accountant or a professional when you're considering your eligibility for that 75% wage subsidy.
Hey, Bryan, would the cloud accounting been of help in this situation here to calculate those numbers?
Well, certainly it would help if you're one who ordinarily isn't sort of up to date on your financial records, right? So if you're on that, or let's say you're not on any system, and all of a sudden you want to, this is a good opportunity to put something like this, put a system in place and get your records up to date, quickly. So so it would in that sense.
That's awesome. I love that you're able to kind of give us these added tips that people may not be aware of. That's a huge one, to know that if you don't have the cash in hand, then you don't have to factor that into your evidence, because you said they had to kind of provide evidence, right, of that drop of 15, 50, 30.
You don't have to provide it to CRA, but you have to, if they ever challenge it, you have to be able to back that up.
Okay, so that's good to know. So there's no actual, like, in terms of due diligence, you don't actually have to submit any, like, the past 5 months worth of I'm not going to be a county because I don't know the lingo, but what, reconciliations or whatnot?
No, I like I say, my understanding is it's an application where you have to sort of what's the word, you attest to the fact that you're eligible for. So they're not asking for a bunch of paperwork to show that you are, but in the event that they come back and ever were to check that, you have to back that up, and that's something to consider. I think it's there are penalties involved. If they're more targeting the people who are willfully playing with these numbers. Like they're the ones who are going to get nailed. But if you make a mistake, I can't imagine they would hold you to the fire. But there are penalties involved if it turns out that you're not eligible. Yeah.
Awesome.
So those two are, we've been doing a lot of work with those. Obviously, it's if you have payroll, if you have employees, it's a nice way to keep them working and kind of help your cash flow situation.
Yeah, keep them, because it entices them to stick around as well in terms of retention. My HR brain has to talk about that. But yeah, like, it's a bit of an incentive to keep them retained right with you, so that you're not losing that level of talent. I'm looking at the time, Seb.
Yes.
Again, keep saying we want to keep it under 20 minutes. It never happens. Like,
I know.
Can you give us like a really high level of other ones that are out there, and then we can provide maybe more information in a post?
Yeah. So I'll name them quickly and then sort of give a high level. So the CERB, the Canada Emergency Response Benefit, is for individuals and businesses. But what I thought would be a value to your audience is that if you're self-employed, right, and because what seems to have happened is a lot of these self-employed people who don't have payroll, they're like, well, what about me, right? So just so in case, to make sure everyone is aware, that CERB, that Canada Emergency Response Benefit, it applies to self-employment income. So as long as you've earned over 5,000, if you've had at least 5,000 in the prior 12 months, $5,000 of income, you can apply for that CERB. Because what we found is people equate that CERB with EI, right? Yeah. So a lot of the self-employed people don't qualify for EI, or not easily anyway, and so they automatically dismiss that one. But it is available to self-employed people. Awesome. The CEBA, so it's the Canada Emergency Business Account. I think so. The acronyms are out of control with this. I tell you, but basically, it's this is a good one. It's an interest-free loan it's through your financial institution, and it's up to $40,000 interest-free. And if you repay it by December 2022, they'll forgive up to 25, or they forgive 25% of it. So up to $10,000 basically. So
it's crazy, but there is a caveat with that one, just because I know that I've talked about it at one point with a colleague, and you have to have had a payroll.
Yeah. So you have to you have had to have operating payroll of at least 20,000, between 20,000 and 1.5 million. But I mean, if you have employees, it's definitely a no-brainer to have an interest-free loan and then potentially have it forgiven and then the last one is through the BDC and EDC, there are some some loan guarantee things happening. So if you're having if ordinarily you would have difficulty obtaining financing through a bank or financial institution, these programs, BDC and EDC are sort of guaranteeing those loans. So the program is called BCAP. I don't even know what this stands for at this stage.
We'll put you on that acronym. Yeah. So it's for high risk people usually that wouldn't be eligible. Maybe someone who's got bad credit or whatnot. Then they're kind of a guaranteed loan.
Yeah, they're backstopping. Yeah, there's kind of two separate programs. So there's one where the EDC or the BDC will actually guarantee up to 80% of a loan through your financial institution. Now, guarantee just it doesn't mean you have to pay for it. It just means that the bank is off the hook if you don't. So they'll be more apt to lend to you. And then there's a co-lending program where the BDC will give 80% of the loan and your financial institution will give 20. So it's kind of two separate programs of the same program. So I know we kind of rushed through that. I think I'm going to provide you with sort of an info sheet that summarizes these, and maybe you can put it in your comments. And anyone who's got more questions, I mean, feel free to contact me directly or GT or a firm in your area. I think it's important to ask the questions because all these firms are up on all this info. So yeah.
And Bryan, that was quite the session today. Very, very informative on my end. And I think a lot of businesses will be happy to hear the information that was shared, but most of all, they might be even happier to have seen your mug for 30 minutes. So thanks for taking the time, and most of all, thanks for offering to give us your time.
And sorry for rushing you through this. We're trying to keep them at a bit of a smaller, manageable time-wise, but if anything, let it just kind of be a taste of what the knowledge and the information that you're able to provide. And I'm hoping that people will kind of, tap into that talent and that knowledge by reaching out to you separately.
Yeah. 100%. And I just wanted to thank you guys. I think what you're doing is great. That's why I wanted to reach out and contribute because, the more information that's out there for people right now, it's a crazy time, man. Like it's once in a lifetime thing. So people are, it's uncharted territory. So I think what you guys are doing is awesome, and I'm happy to be part of it. So thanks.
All right, Bryan. Thanks. Lorianne, thanks again.
Yes.
See you at episode 5.
Yeah, I'll be texting you in an hour with what we're doing.
All right, sounds good.
Thanks, everyone. Have a great weekend.
All right, guys.
Thanks. Bye.